We're just having a regular Saturday, and my youngest daughter came running in.
And I was like, why is it so red? After that, brown stuff came out of the wall.
It's all the water and dark stuff coming out of the bathroom. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Where is this coming from? Finally, my uncle said, this is oil.
U.S. oil production just hit an all-time record, 13.6 million barrels a day. There are approximately 4 million abandoned oil and gas wells in the United States. What exactly is in this water?
This is a huge environmental and public health crisis beneath our feet.
We're on the verge of bankruptcy.
We can't just go buy a new house.
They don't have drinking water. Their cattle are dying. My husband, he had a heart attack.
They knew it was a problem, but they weren't willing to buck the system.
We lived in our little house for 12 years to save up to even build a house. We had worked so hard to have a place of our own. We assumed we were getting a perfect house.
Are you getting soaking wet? Wow. Look at me. What are you doing?
I'm holding.
Yeah, you are.
I'll take you back there. It was just flowing out everywhere.
And it was kind of like this stuff with this oily sheen.
It was just black. I've begged for the help to contain and divert it, and nothing.
No one's helping you.
Nothing.
I report on oil and gas in Oklahoma. If you get outside of Tulsa in really any direction, you'll start seeing pump jacks and tank batteries and drilling rigs. It's pretty omnipresent here. I assume. We're gonna go try to find some orphan wells on Turkey Mountain. Orphan wells are old wells that have been abandoned by the industry and not properly plugged or cleaned up. Says we're either right on top of it or nearby. About 2 years ago, I started looking into oil field wastewater coming up through old orphan wells. The more I looked, the more I found. The US now produces more oil and gas than any country in the history of the world. And one byproduct of that is trillions of gallons of toxic wastewater. Oklahoma crams tens of billions of gallons of oil field wastewater underground every year. Over time, that space fills up and below ground pressure builds. If you put this wastewater deep at significant volumes, you get earthquakes, and you get a lot of them. And if you put it at shallow depths, at high pressures, the force can also crack the rock. The wastewater is spreading widely, it's polluting groundwater, and it's purging to the surface and blasting out of old wells. This is a huge problem in West Texas, but in Oklahoma, some of these pollution events are happening near where people live. I've seen salt scars on farmland that has made it unusable. I've talked to ranchers whose cattle drink purge water, and their cattle die. Oklahoma is a sort of cautionary tale for the oil and gas industry in America as a whole. In most of the country, state agencies oversee oil and gas injection. In Oklahoma, that agency is the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, or the OCC. There are 3 elected commissioners, and they are habitually elected with a significant amount of industry funding. Employees have spent years documenting these purges and other problems with oil and gas injection. They had reams of evidence that the way these wells were injecting were causing really serious pollution.
We've had to move away from town. All the kids they played with.
We were just trying to trust that they would do their job. Then it was just like run around after run around after run around.
About whether it's even oil.
Yeah. The methane gas has been documented to be very high.
So the gas levels have reached the point of like, you light a cigarette in there.
This place could blow up.
We have a lot of neighbors. It's just sitting there at nearly explosive levels.
I went and got my own testing bottles from a lab, and so I was coming home and I thought, you know what, I need to make some calls.
I'm looking at that house bathroom sample that you sent in.
Yes.
It's absolutely oil.
See, OCC will not say a word. They will not say that they believe it's oil.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Oklahoma Corporation Commission, Mr. Roger.
You guys keep on acting like you don't know and you don't have a clue.
What do you think it is, Mitch?
I know what it is. You guys know what it is. You don't want to say it. We know that's oil, and you have failed. I'm out of a house, I have 3 kids out of a house, and I'm tired of the damn games.
So what has the Corporation Commission told you about next steps?
The director, he drove from the Capitol to my house. He said, well, there's check marks to say if it's an oil well. Every check mark is marked off, but finding the well bore. He said, I do believe it's right here. It's not outside. He said, it's under this house.
The collision of new construction on old oil fields is, I mean, it's not just you guys, it's happening all over.
Yeah.
All over the state, there are new residential areas being put up on top of old oil fields. I've been compiling a map of orphans all over the state. There's a cluster right near an REI. Here's one that's in the river. The state list of orphan wells is about 20,000 wells long. Federal researchers from the Department of Energy think that that true number is more like 300,000 orphan wells. State records show that in 1946, there was an oil well drilled about 400 feet northwest of where the Meredith's house sits today. But records from 80 years ago are often inaccurate. This is the Meredith's neighborhood in the 1930s, before the well was drilled. And here's the Meredith's neighborhood in 1952, after the drilling took place. And you can see the ground here is different, is almost exactly where the Meredith's house now stands. And so it seems likely that their house was built on top of an old, poorly plugged well. Orphan wells can wake up unexpectedly and leak methane and toxic fluids. That seems to be what happened to the Merediths. But current injection practices in Oklahoma are also triggering purges. When I first started looking into this purge problem, I met a former OCC employee. He had been a pretty high-ranking manager within the oil division, and he'd really been brought on to help address the purge crisis.
I became a field engineer in 1983 and never did want to give it up. I always enjoyed working on the wells. I went to work at the commission because I really believed that I could help them. But it turns out the commission really didn't want the help. So I left, but I'm still trying to help other people. So now we're gonna have to walk a little ways down the road here to find the well. There are tons of wells in Oklahoma that have not been plugged properly. The operators were allowed to walk off and leave them, and left it for the taxpayers to plug the wells. This was a well that was drilled back in 1916. And there's an injection well 150 feet away. And what it's doing, it's pressuring up the water and pushing it right over to here. You can see the salt out on the ground out there. There's nothing growing there. It's too salty. I would give Oklahoma a D- on well control. Almost all of the cases that I dealt with, there was too much pressure. The solution to that is simply to reduce the pressure. This water is approximately 5 to 10 times as salty as the ocean. One of the most worrisome toxic materials is called benzene. It is a carcinogen. We want to prevent people from drinking that kind of water.
We built the house in 2022 and we planted bushes and plants all along here and out around the trees and the rock areas. Over time, they started dying and we had no idea why they were dying. It took about another year to realize that it was the salt content in our water that was killing everything around.
What did it taste like?
Like you're drinking ocean water.
That's when we were like, something's not right.
The Oklahoma Corporation Commission came out to investigate and tested our water multiple times. And we learned that we had barium in our water. Our chlorides were very high.
So this is the OCC showing you over a Teams meeting that your water well is right in the middle of a cloud of pollution.
So the concentrations range, I think, between 3,000 and 5,000 parts per million, but 11,000, and right here, 36,000.
That's now 72 times more concentrated than the EPA's recommendation for drinking water.
Yet we were drinking it.
The Bormans live outside of a small town called Arcadia, and their home sits on top of what was in the 1940s a large oil and gas field that helped make Oklahoma one of the world leaders in oil and gas production at the time. In the first half of 2024, Tammy was communicating with the commission, but she got the sense that they weren't telling her everything. And so she put in an open records request and got a bunch of documents. And what she learned is the commission thought that one potential source of her pollution was nearby active oil and gas operations. And when they finally did run tests on those wells, they found problems. The conclusion of that report was that this is likely oil and gas pollution and that there's more testing that the OCC could do to try to identify the source of that pollution. But internally, the OCC was expressing concern about the cost of these tests to a nearby oil and gas company. They said these tests would cost the operator too much. What makes this troubling is that the OCC knows the consequences. Once oil field pollution gets into groundwater, it's almost impossible to unmix. It's essentially permanent.
We went to like grandma's, and then we went to a lake house. Then we moved to the Donna's house, and then we moved to here. It was like it was a vacation, but not a really fun vacation.
Hello, my man.
Good. The house we're in now is like small though. I sleep right here, and my sister sleeps right here.
It's a drink. You should be drinking it, not eating it.
I am drinking it, but this is the only thing I could find to mix.
She's like littler than me, so like she don't understand it as much as me. It makes her sad, so I've just been trying to comfort.
The house that we're living in now is the house that Mitch and I first lived in when we got married. It's just a small little 900 square foot, 2-bedroom farmhouse. And it really was a God thing that this house was even available. Having to move multiple times while having a newborn baby is not ideal. How many of those do you think you're gonna eat?
Probably 2.
All right, you're good to go, girl. She really is such a strong kid. With type 1 diabetes, it's just an awful disease for someone to have to live with, and it's 24/7 care. We always think of kids as just being resilient, but they still feel things just like we do. And they're kids, so they don't quite understand how like we can't just go buy a new house. And I don't know who we're supposed to call to get someone to take accountability. You would think, okay, well, the governor, he's the top guy, like get in touch with him, but I have called his office so many times. Like, what is he there for if he's not going to help the people of Oklahoma?
We're on the verge of bankruptcy because there's no way out of this loan, there's no way out of the house, and it's worth nothing.
With basically all natural resource-based industries, you have to make these companies set aside money for cleanup when they're actually productive. And Oklahoma hasn't really done that. The number of purges has continued to climb in the past few years. And I got my hands on an internal memo from the OCC's oil division that laid out how they were going to respond to these purges. Employees sounded the alarm, and none of that was made public. One thing that it said is that the agency could pursue contempt cases in court against oil companies for failure to prevent pollution. But I found out that they haven't filed a contempt case in the past 5 years, and they haven't fined any oil company for a purge during that time. So I went to the agency office in Oklahoma City. I was told that the agency's goal is not to punish oil and gas companies, but it's just to bring them back in line.
We have two key underlying principles in our approach to regulation that may be different than the past. One of them is to do the next right thing. And the other one is to lead with a handshake instead of a hammer.
Do you think that companies are at all scared of enforcement from the state?
No, that's a big problem. Some of them take it very serious and they don't want to get into trouble. But there are just enough few out there that's causing a lot of the problems. The Corporation Commission is catering to the oil industry and not to the citizens.
I started looking at each of the commissioners and how much money that they had accepted campaign funds from the industry they regulate. It was more than 50%, some 70%. This is harming people right now. You should look at that. And they refused.
I'm bleeding money here, trying to get decent water so we can live, and you guys are worried about the gentleman that's making money off his oil well over here. So who are you guys working for?
Speaking of all the money you guys have spent on this problem, could you show me the RO system?
Sure.
Yeah. It's a reverse osmosis system, and it takes our water coming into the house and it filters it, cleans it, takes out all the chlorides, all the contaminants, the barium, bromide, and strontium that we have in our water. It's affording us to being able to stay in this house. We had barium at 3 times the EPA limit in our water.
What are the health impacts of barium?
Potential cardiovascular issues. Chris had a heart attack in late 2024. Do we know that our water was the cause of that? No, but at the very minimum, the stress level that we're living in, not knowing if you're going to be able to stay in your home or not, it's been a challenge.
Has the OCC ever found a culprit for the pollution?
No, and they closed our case.
If you don't look for the cause, I guess you'll never find it, and that's where we're at.
The mission and vision of the Oklahoma Corporation Commission is to protect citizens of Oklahoma, and the Merediths are a perfect example of them failing. I learned about the Meredith family through a mutual friend. I was in disbelief.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to do this either.
So we're headed to the OCC's community town hall meeting, I guess. Interestingly enough, they put this together and didn't even let us know about it.
This all came, we were 7 months out. Silence. After finally pressing them, like, for not helping us, because we are still just, I mean, this is still just flowing out of the ground. And we did finally have to start blowing it up.
Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just come to you today and we just ask that you be with us in this meeting, God. We already know that you're fighting for us. God, we just continue to pray that you will put a heavy conviction on these people's hearts and that they would do the right thing. Lord, we love you.
Gas specialist. So let's start tonight. I'm going to hand it over to the Director of Administration.
This is the approximate location of where the Meredith property is located.
I've never heard of the OCC doing something like this for a single pollution case that's affecting one family.
Fluoride concentrations were obviously elevated in the samples that we got from OSU.
We don't have the authority to buy the property to in order to determine if there's a well.
What emergency action has been taken?
Emergency action? None
It's an environmental risk, correct? There's water running off. You state in your 1085 that
That's
there
personal
is a very-
property, personal residence. I'm a regulatory body.
Is not the authority of the Corporation Commission to remedy pollution.
That's a broader statement that I would agree with.
Would you live there?
See, you and your own answer.
So you're saying that you don't want to answer the question whether you would actually live in that house?
That's a hypothetical one.
No, it's not. If it was your family, would you live in that house?
Okay, hold on.
What is your suggestion at the best course of action for the Merediths to get this resolved?
I filed a claim for damages with our insurance company.
How can we protect it? There's 61,000 undocumented wells. As a citizen, how do we protect ourselves in this state?
I'm in the same boat that you're in.
I think you had an honest heart, but you got blocked when you got back to the Capitol. You told them what it was.
You are correct.
Okay, you told them what it was.
It's just amazing when your people show up for you, and our people did that tonight.
And it does no good to have legislation if you've got an agency that refuses to take jurisdiction, that basically tried to portray that it had zero to do with oil and gas. That's what we've dealt with for 214 days now. So them trying to act like, well, they came back. I'm an insurance agent. But to do insurance for a living, and then you finally need your own help and you just don't get it, was very disheartening. They just automatically denied my claim.
Mr. Meredith, we have investigated. We have looked at the claim.
You've been to my house?
We have not been to your house.
I do not understand how you can deny a claim without doing a thorough investigation. A big claim without doing a thorough. It sounds like you're skirting to me.
How likely is it that the solution here is that you have to tear down the house?
Right now, that's became the only solution. That's been hard to swallow.
Something that you worked so hard for, and that is the home to your family. Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's going to be so hard to watch that happen.
I can take anything, but your babies.
I really miss just the house in general. Every day it's a new part of it that I just miss more.
Can I go home? Can I go home? Can I go home? I miss my house. I say that all the time.
The Corporation Commission, they care more about protecting oil and gas companies more than they do helping the people, protecting them from the oil and gas.
I happen to know that we can produce oil and protect the environment at the same time. We're not going to put the state out of business. The state is not going to go broke. Oklahoma can't live in the direction that we're headed right now. The residents in that town get up and they're going to have salt water running out their tap water. And then it's too late.